The big political talk in the country is, when is President Zuma going to leave office as leader of this country? And it's something that seems to have confused and created complexity for his own organization, the African National Congress. And the president of the party, Cyril Ramaphosa, is negotiating with him to leave, and to do so without humiliation. But then, majority of South Africans, it appears, would like to have seen the back of the president days ago. As we speak, the State of the Nation address has been postponed, and it has never happened since 1994. And it is one important ritual on the political calendar of the country. But there we are, it has happened. Thabang Motsohi is director at Lenomo Strategic Advisory, and Dumisani Hlophe, political analyst, UNISA School of Governance. Two analysts who are with me once again to discuss a different version, or part two of the same story. Because earlier this year we were talking about this and saying, now that there's new leadership in the ANC, probably, you know, it's game over for President Zuma, but how it was going to pan out, we had no idea. But at least one thing we know, there's no State of Nation address currently that is being addressed by President Zuma. So who is going to pay for the lunch? The last time we spoke? All right, well, it's a draw. I accept it as such, and then the lunch will be on me. Because you know, we can't say he did not address the State of the Nation address, because there's no State of the Nation address to be addressed. Exactly. But it appears to be a complicated situation. A few days ago, Sunday, many people thought it was a foregone conclusion. The top six of ANC will meet with President Zuma, and then he'll automatically resign. It did not happen. So where do you think the talks are now, and why are they taking several days? It looks like it may even go on for weeks.
In my view, I think the crisis that we have actually confirms, you know, the opinions some of us have heard about what is happening within the African National Congress, which is that there's been a crisis of leadership, especially, you know, amplified in the past decade. This is just the culmination of that. You know, I deal with organizations, and one of the most important things that you do and have to understand from an organizational behavior point of view is that you must manage such critical things effectively. And succession planning is one of those that are absolutely critical, especially for an organization like the ANC, which is in government, at a time when we've gone through such challenging times in the past 5 years. So people's level of anxieties have been very high because of the economy and many other pressures that they have, social pressures that they have as a result of that. So basically people were expecting swift transition, swift changes, an emphatic change, you know, and already there were indications that perhaps that change was going to be emphatic. Why? Because of what is happening at ESCOM. Now you have what is happening at ESCOM. The international community looks at that and says, yes, now at least there are signals that things are going to happen. And then you have this catastrophe, you know, in terms of handling the exit of the current state president. It is totally unnecessary. It should have been handled differently. The management of the communication with the public is absolutely poor. Well, so everything is, if you, on scale of 1 to 10, everything is at 3.
But at least the leader of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, issued a statement in that regard, and he seems to be positive that whatever is being discussed with President Zuma is constructive and productive, will bear fruit soon in a matter of days. What did you make of that statement?
Well, it doesn't have content. I think the content of that statement, it basically says that hang in there, I'm handling this matter, sooner or later it will be sorted out. Which basically means that it says that, you know, Jacob Zuma as the president is being given more time to deal with particular issues. My biggest suspicion is that perhaps some of these negotiations that they are dealing with is the issue of how the legal fees are going to be funded. Because the biggest problem of Zuma post his presidential term, like if he steps down, it will be the case of the fees, because legal fees, because he's constantly in court. And even the courts have begun to say that, look, you are going to pay from your own pocket because it looks like you're abusing the judicial system, which in the first place is the system that is expected to protect at all costs. But here's a bigger issue, Tim. This crisis, they can only be a crisis if the leadership is poor. Because sometimes crisis and chaos are a very significant point of departure to learn what to do or not to do in organizational matters. So if the ANC leadership is wise enough, they are going to use this matter to determine how to move forward in terms of managing the relationship between the organization, which is the ANC, and the deployees of the ANC in government. The biggest problem of the ANC in the past few years, it has been the inability of Luthuli House to deal with its errant leadership that it has been deployed in, in government. And once the ruling party is chaotic in itself, then that chaos gets duplicated at the government level and in the democratic state institutions. So the chaos in the ANC, which you can track it from the ANC's inability to deal with issues of Nkandla, of state capture, and all those chaotic issues where people in government became larger than the organization. Now that chaos, we are now bearing the brunt of all of it now as a society.
But you know, this leads to the view held by those who follow these things closely and who may know President Zuma personally, that he's a he's a great chess master, and he's playing everybody. I mean, he told the top six to go home on Sunday, and this matter that he should leave was discussed even by the National Working Committee of the ANC, from what we learn, and the NEC itself previously had discussed this, and their meeting was postponed, and now there are these anxieties that we're talking about, see, and there's no conclusion on the matter.
Here's where the fault has been. You see, President Zuma is what I call a political street fighter. Okay, he is very good in terms of political maneuvering from within the space of his own organizations. But once you take him out of that space and you put him through formal judicially, quasi-judicial processes, he is extremely found wanting. This is why the ANC, within the organization, they will battle to deal with him, and yet the opposition, when they go to court, they deal with him effectively.
Well, and then the procedures, right, or that the opposition parties, EFF, DA specifically, have been following, they seem to be, putting appropriate pressure on the matter, and they seem to have been in a better position to predict the outcome of the ANC processes. For instance, approaching the Speaker of Parliament to schedule the motion of no confidence deliberations, and the date set for the 22nd, and then changing and saying they actually want that before the State of the Nation address, thus precipitating the postponement that we see now. And even within that space, not much happening on the part of the ANC. So how else is this matter going to end? Are we going to reach the 22nd of February, where the motion of confidence will have to be debated in Parliament?
It's a very difficult question, I think, to speculate on. But I think what is happening is, as Dumisani also indicates, the level of chaos in managing the organization is just beyond understanding. I'll give you one example. In organizations, when you go through the transformation of this kind, that is so massive, you make sure that the people that are at the top, that have been given the responsibility to manage that organization, have the executive authority to drive change. Now, Cyril was in Davos singing a particular hymn, which was being listened to with great interest. And what do you hear over a weekend? Secretary General of the ANC in Durban sings something else. I mean, in any organization, he would have been fired instantly, because it is subverting the whole effort. Yeah, well, now, how do you manage an organization when its Secretary General, a very powerful person?
I suppose the argument that can be made there, just a quick point, is that he was elected to it, he was not appointed, therefore he cannot,
It doesn't matter whether he was elected or not. It just shows that the authority of the president of the ANC is not being felt sufficiently enough at lower levels.
Okay.
That's where the problem is.
But here is the point then, to go back to my question. The president of the ANC is battling to resolve the matter with a deployee, not an office bearer of the ANC. What does that say?
Well, you know, it confirms what I've always said before, and what I wrote about, you know, in 2016 and 2014. When the organization is as broken as it is, and no one can deny that it is not broken. There is no center, for example. They're always talking about the political center. And I've been asking myself, if you're talking about the political center and you say decisions are made there, can anyone point to me where that center is? Who is in authority in that center? Who can then take decisions and make sure that they also happen? There is no center.
Yeah.
And that is a fundamental problem.
Now,
But we can answer your question, Tim,
yes,
directly.
Go ahead.
Here's the story. The center is supposed to be the top 6. And I'm saying supposed because that's what the constitution of the ANC says. 2, Cyril cannot, I think we are putting undue pressure on Cyril to act like a cowboy. You jump into this leadership saddle of this horse and you start cracking the whip. It doesn't work that in the context of organizational development. The ANC has the rules and regulations and constitution that determines that, you know, when the organization is going to do this thing, this is the process that is going to follow. So what did Cyril and his company do? They had an ordinary meeting of the NEC. People raised this issue, and the NEC said that you go and manage this issue. So that's what and they've done it through the NWC and
themselves.
Yeah, and they were going to come back to report today, which the meeting has been postponed. So here's the story. When you're a new leader of an organization which is fragile, you don't jump in and crack the whip. The first thing that you do, you reach out to those that you defeated and you show them that, look, you are still part of this organization. Don't go anywhere, we need you the most. So he has to act a bit more diplomatically, show a sense of statesmanship and all that. And the problem, by the way, of the outgoing leadership of the ANC, it was this extremism, this lack of statesmanship and lack of this reaching out and all of that. So Cyril, in this case, I think he has done well at 2 levels.
Let me just interrupt you there, unfortunately, and I'm very curious about the 2 levels, but the matter that people are anxious about is the position of President Zuma. Does he have, he's still president, as we speak. What happens to the legitimacy of that position?
Well, you only, look, legitimacy, Tim, this is what it means, that you occupy that position because you went through the proper processes. So he enjoys that authority there, that he is in that position. Legitimacy, it means you are seen to be doing what is expected of anyone in that position.
Well, the idea is out there in the public mind that he's going anyway, but as to when, how, that's the problem.
So he doesn't enjoy too much legitimacy right now because of all these court cases, the state of capture and all of this kind. It has taken the that oomph, out of him. This is why it's been difficult to expect him that he will stand in front of society and say, this is where we are going.
Okay. Final question, because it's a matter that's dragging on, and very briefly. Do you think that there will be a final resolution of this matter within days, within weeks?
I have no doubt, Tim, that there will be a resolution. And that resolution has very few options. The president will have to resign. There is no doubt about that. Because you can see that what the ANC is trying to avoid is to push this issue into Parliament where a motion of no confidence shall be debated. That's one thing. I mean, no party will ever want its to follow the motion of confidence from the opposite side.
Well, it looks like we might go that direction.
Absolutely,
but
no doubt.
We never know. As they say,
it will be resolved by the 17th.
Okay.
I'm putting a date. It will be resolved by the 17th.
Before the 17th.
Before the 17th.
Yes.
He will be, it's not whether it's going or not, it's the how part of it.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, The anxieties are still out there in South Africa, broader South Africa, and the international community watching the political developments here in South Africa, and the leader of the ANC, who's the deputy president of the country, reassuring or trying to in his statement saying that he is on top of the game. Can you imagine this? You have to negotiate with your boss in context of the presidency of South Africa to leave, and you happen to be his boss because you put him there as the leader of the organization, the ANC. So, very interesting, complex situation. Dumisani Hlophe and Thabang Motsohi, thank you very much. And from us, good night to you until next time.